السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. رب يسر ولا تؤسر وتممه لنا بالخير يا فتاه يا فتاه يا فتاه. Respected brothers and elders, mothers and sisters in Islam, we are grateful, thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has gathered us here tonight once again in His house to learn and to reflect over the life of the greatest man to ever walk on the face of this earth, the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the true muhabba, the love, and of course the ita'at and obedience to the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Tonight is our 41st session of the Seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is part 4 of the Battle of Badr, where the Battle of Badr actually itself begins. Just as a recap from last time that we were together, we went over session 40. That was the third part of the Battle of Badr, which was when the armies themselves met. Just as a recap, so we're on the same page. Once the Ansar of Medina had committed to the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that they are ready to stand with the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to defend the Muslims, to protect the Muslims and Sahaba, and stand against the Meccans and the Quraysh, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam began his journey towards Badr. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made 3 groups amongst the Sahaba. This is a quick recap. He made 3 groups amongst the Sahaba. He made a group amongst the Ansar, the Muhajirin, and a group in the back which was there to support them. He made Musab ibn Umayr radiyallahu anhu the flag bearer of the entire army of Badr. So the army, the flag of Badr was carried by Musab ibn Umayr radiyallahu anhu. That young Sahabi who lived one of the most lavish lives. He was one of the first Muhajirin as a teacher towards Medina. He was the flag bearer of the Battle of Badr itself. The color of the flag of Badr for the Muslims was white. There was no particular primarily flag that the Muslims had of one color. It would be anything that was available. So the color of the flag of the Muslims on the day of Badr was white in the hands of Musab ibn Umayr radiyallahu anhu. There was no standard flag of the Muslim army. On the right side, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam kept the Muhajirin underneath the leadership of Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu. On the left side of the army, he kept the Ansar underneath the guidance of Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh radiyallahu anhu, who was the leader amongst the Ansar. And behind them, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam kept a third group underneath the leadership of a man known as Qais ibn Sa'sa, which was of course a backup army troop, just so that if any need was there, they would come back and they would provide for them. Of course, there was wisdom behind all of this, because this is from last time. I'm going through this quickly as a recap. Once Rasulullah ﷺ reached Badr, and the Muslims reached Badr on the 16th of Ramadan, a day before the battle itself began. The Prophet of Allah ﷺ situated his Sahaba in a certain location. A young Sahabi, his name was Khubab ibn Mundar. He said, O Prophet of Allah ﷺ, is there a wahi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a revelation that we must stay in this location, or did you choose it yourself? So the Prophet of Allah ﷺ said, Khubab, I chose it myself. He said, O Nabi of Allah ﷺ, if you don't find this disrespectful, can I give you an opinion that let's keep our camps a little bit ahead of us? Meaning the wells of Badr should be behind us, not in front of us. Because if we camp in front and the Quraysh are even in front of us, then the water will be in our control. And if the Quraysh needs the water, they would have to pass through us to get the water rather than it being in front of us. So why don't we strategically camp ourselves at that location? Rasulullah ﷺ took his opinion. Jibreel ﷺ came with wahi, and of course it was so fruitful as we learned last time together. The Prophet of Allah ﷺ spent the entire night, 16th going into the 17th night of the Ramadan, in prayers and ibadat and devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Light rain began to come upon the Sahaba, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Anfal chapter number 8 verse number 43. He also mentions sakina and comfort and sleep towards Sahaba, which Ali radiallahu anhu himself mentions. He says, Wallahi, if you were with us on the day of Badr, you would have seen that everyone slept because of itminan and comfort, even though they know that they have to face an army of 1,000 strong, but they're sleeping with comfort. You have a small exam tomorrow, you have an interview tomorrow, you have a court day, may Allah forgive, tomorrow. You can't go to sleep with ease and comfort. They have a battle, they are in the battleground. Allah puts them to sleep with ease and comfort. Ali radiallahu anhu said, for wallahi, every one of us was sleeping except for the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who stood for the entire night. And of course, he prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some narrations have mentioned there was a lot more rain on the side of the Quraysh at that night, so their land became really muddy. And of course, this was the nusrah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Nabi of Allah sallallahu went around the rows and he protected, and of course, he corrected the rows. There was a man known as Suwad radiallahu anhu. We mentioned his story of his love for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam poked him a little bit to correct his line. And he said, "O Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you did not do justice to me that you poked me." The Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam handed over the stick to him. And he says, "Sawad, poke me." So he came and he embraced and he hugged Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he said, "May my parents be sacrificed, O Nabi of Allah. I just wanted an opportunity to hug you because I never knew that this might be the last moments of my life. And the person that I wanted to touch last was the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam." So it showed his devotion and his humbleness and the love of Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'in. The Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made lots of dua before facing the army. A man known as Umayr ibn Wahab, who was one of the best scouts for Quraysh, came in and he assessed the Muslim army early in the morning and he gave the number to the Quraysh and said, "I think they have about 300 people. But what I assess is that they are determined, they are brave, and they are not scared. And now you are going to face these people and you're not going to return back safe. So Abu Jahl, go back. It's not time for you to fight these men. Let's go back." But they never took this person's opinion. Hakim ibn Hizam was also a part of this army of Quraysh. He wanted his best not to fight with the Muslims. He tried with Utbah ibn Rabi'ah and many of these individuals. But of course, Abu Jahl brought up some old feuds. And this is from last week, so I'm going through it very quickly. So they brought up the old feuds of Ibn Hadrami and many of these things. And finally, they instigated Utbah ibn Rabi'ah by saying, "You are a coward, you should go and fight." And he was the first one to go and of course be killed in that particular battle. The Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, before the battle started, said, "Do not kill Ibn Abbas, do not kill Abu Bakhtari." And he gave few names of people to be let go of and not be killed on those particular days. When the challenge began, and this is from last time, the beginning of the battle, 3 men came from the Quraysh, Utbah and Shayba and Walid, 2 brothers and a son. Utbah, Shayba and Walid. Utbah and Shayba are brothers, Walid is the son. So now when they both came, all 3 of them came. And prior to this, I mentioned there was a man known as Al-Aswad ibn Abdul Aswad. Al-Makhdumi was the first man to be killed in the Battle of Badr from the side of Quraysh. He came in the middle of the night and he said, "You know what? I'm going to go get some water from the Muslims, from their wells that they are covering in Badr." And of course, Hamza radiallahu anhu saw him at that night and of course took his life. That was the first casualty in Badr itself from Quraysh. So Utbah, Shayba and Walid came and they wanted to face the Muslims. 3 young Ansar, known as Auf ibn Afra, Muawwaz ibn Afra, and Abdullah bin Rawaha got up and said, "We are ready to face you." They said, No, we have nothing to do with you. You go back and send some people that we know, our caliber, meaning even Mutakabbir at that time. We need Muhajirun, we need people from Mecca. So at that time, Rasulullah himself picked and chose these individuals. And the Nabi of Allah said, where is Ali, where is Hamza, where is Ubaidah ibn Haris? All 3 from amongst the family of Rasulullah. All 3 of them faced their enemies. They killed all of them. And of course, Ubaidah radiallahu anhu became a little wounded and he passed away once he returned back. Of course, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that night, he was fixing the lines. He was praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, sheet and shawl fell to the ground and he began to cry to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, "Oh Allah, these are the group of people that are in front of you who are worshipping you and praying to you. Oh Allah, if they do not remain, then there will be no one to say your name till the day of Qiyamah." At this moment, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said, "Oh Nabi of Allah, enough, you have prayed enough." At this moment, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw Jibreel alayhi salam come in the shape of an individual who was wearing a turban, which I'll talk about in today's session. And at this moment, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's face became bright and he said, "Abshir ya Abu Bakr, Abshir ya Abu Bakr, Abshir ya Abu Bakr, Basharat, glad tidings, O Abu Bakr. Indeed, Jibreel has come with 1,000 angels, malaika. They are completely ready to help the Muslims." And of course, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam at that time mentioned, "Sayahzimul jam' wa yuwalluna dubur," that indeed a time will come that they will assemble together, but they will run behind their backs. And of course, this was the beginning of the battle itself. Let's get to tonight's session, and that is the beginning of the battle itself. The actual battle cannot be described in detail because the battle actually entails amongst hundreds of people, 313 on one side, 1,000 people on one side. So it's very hard to describe an entire battle, and we do not have all these narrations collected together as well. But what we do have is that we have reports of incidents which had taken place, and there are about 15 stories that we find from authentic narrations related to the Battle of Badr itself. And with these 15 stories or so that we have, we can actually assess the Battle of Badr and just have an outside picture. First and foremost, one of the beautiful stories related to Badr is of a story known as a man known as Umayr ibn Hammam radiyallahu anhu. Umayr ibn Hammam radiyallahu anhu is amongst the 14 Muslims who became shaheed and martyred on the day of Badr. These were some of the greatest of the men who had the opportunity to meet Shahada on the day of Badr. So Umayr ibn Hammam radiyallahu anhu is one of them. So at this moment, he was sitting down and someone told him, "Qumu ila al-Jannah." Rise and walk and run towards Jannah. At this moment, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he made this announcement, "Qumu ila al-Jannah," run towards Jannah, whose width is between the heavens and the earth. So at this moment, he was eating some dates. And as soon as he was eating the dates and he heard the voice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the caller saying this, that "Qumu ila al-Jannah," rise towards Jannah, he threw away his dates and he says, "Bakh, bakh." Bakh in Arabic is a metaphor or a word that they use is to trivialize something, meaning to consider something less important. So Rasulullah said, "Mahma," meaning why are you saying bakh, O Umayr ibn Hammam? What makes you feel that your eating of date is something which is worthless and no worth? So he says, what I mean is, O Nabi of Allah, if Jannah is so vast, for what you said, that run towards Jannah, which worth is heavens and the earth, why am I living in this world? Why am I not even coming closer towards Jannah? How priceless is this dunya, and I'm still in this world where Allah's Rasul has mentioned the vastness of Jannah. And at this moment, Rasulullah said, "O Umayr, you are from amongst them." O Umayr, you are from amongst them. As soon as the Nabi of Allah said, "O Umayr, you are from amongst the people of Jannah whose vastness is bigger than the heavens and the earth," he ran towards this and he became amongst a handful of individuals who became shaheed on the day of Badr itself. Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajmain, strategically, when they were being told by the Prophet of Allah how to fight the Battle of Badr, they were told that do not throw your arrows. This was the strategy that the Prophet told the Sahaba. Do not throw your arrows, but keep them with you till the Quraysh had come very close towards you. Because if you throw them from far away, you miss them. You don't have a lot of ammunition. So keep it to yourself. Let the Quraysh come very close towards you. But do not be impatient. Do not feel that they're too close. Do not become impatient. Do not waste your arrows. But when they come very close towards you, then shower arrows upon them. That was the strategy that Rasulullah ﷺ gave them. But save some for later. And then Rasulullah ﷺ also told the Sahaba, these are from authentic narrations related to Badr, do not unsheath your swords till the end. Do not open your swords and come to one-on-one combat until you reach the ends. Rasulullah ﷺ at that very particular moment, some have said even before, the Nabi of Allah ﷺ picked up a handful of dirt. The Nabi of Allah ﷺ threw it and said, "Shahatul wujuh, shahatul wujuh." The Nabi of Allah ﷺ used this expression, may the faces of these individuals be cursed. The Nabi of Allah ﷺ threw that dirt towards the direction of the Quraysh, and the hadith mentioned that there was not even a single person left from the Quraysh who did not have to rub their eyes while they felt dust within their own eyes. Did the Prophet of Allah ﷺ physically fight in the Battle of Badr or not? This is a question that we have to ask ourselves. Generally, Rasulullah ﷺ in all of the 19 ghazawat, I talked about this in the beginning, that there are some things known as ghazawat, the battles. There are something known as saraya, expeditions or campaigns. Ghazawat are those journeys that Rasulullah ﷺ himself partook inside, and there are 19 of them. And the saraya are those campaigns that Rasulullah ﷺ just send the Sahaba underneath the guidance of one of the companions. So the battles, the ghazawat that Rasulullah ﷺ was a part of, did he physically fight in them or not? Generally, Rasulullah ﷺ never fought in most of the battles, but Rasulullah ﷺ commanded them. The Nabi of Allah ﷺ commanded these battles, but he personally never fought in any of the battles, except that the Prophet of Allah ﷺ participated physically in the Battle of Badr itself. Ibn Hajar, rahimahullah ta'ala anhu al-Asqalani, has mentioned that he would fight in the Battle of Badr and then he would go pray. He would fight in the Battle of Badr and then he would go pray. And this could be more clearly understood from the hadith of Ali radiallahu anhu. And Ali radiallahu anhu said that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the closest from the enemy. The Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the closest to the Quraysh, the enemies, which means that he was in the midst of the battle. And he was the bravest of us all. And whenever we felt the pressure of the enemy, we would take the shadow of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Meaning he was the closest to the enemy, he was the bravest amongst us, and when we would feel that we are being attacked by Quraysh that we cannot repel, we would take the shadow of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the saying of Ali radiallahu anhu. But he also reports, Ali radiallahu anhu also reports that I went to the tent, the camp of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I saw the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam praying and saying this word repeatedly on the night of Badr. Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum. And even in the morning, I went to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was saying Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum. Then Ali radiallahu anhu said, I went back, I participated in the battle, I came back the second time, and I saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam still praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The third time, Ali radiallahu anhu said, I went back the second time, then I came back the third time, and I saw the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in sajda, making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And once I had left the tent of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had already given victory to the Muslims. So Ali radiallahu anhu reports this, that even though he was participating, he was the bravest of all, but he was also praying. The first time he was standing up and saying Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum. I went back and came back, he was still praying. The third time he was in sajda, and when I went back, and of course Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had already given him the victory. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu stayed very close to the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the battlefield, and also while the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was praying. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals the ayah of the Quran in Surah Al-Anfal chapter 8 verse number 9. وَإِسْتَغِيثُونَ رَبَّكُمْ فَاسْتَجَابَ لَكُمْ إِنِّي مُمِدُّكُمْ بِأَلْفٍ مِّنَ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. Allahu Akbar. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this very beautiful ayah of the Quran said that when you were showing the talab and desire and your need to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tastaghis means that, you know, when a person is in such need and desire from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَاسْتَجَابَ لَكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered to your call. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala listened to your prayers. And what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do? إِنِّي مُمِدُّكُمْ بِأَلْفٍ مِّنَ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. Mumid in Arabic is a very beautiful word. And one thing which is a lesson for all of us to take back, brothers and sisters, Mumid doesn't mean that Allah sends someone to do your work for you. But the word Mumid in Arabic means to help you finish your work. You start and Allah will help you finish. It's not that I'm going to sit down and work will be taken care of. No. That's not what Mumid is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us in this ayah of the Quran, you make the effort, then the nusrah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be there. You make the effort and struggle, then the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will come. So nusra and the word mumid has a different meaning to itself. So the word mumiddukum, Allahu Akbar, is such a beautiful word in which the Quran is saying that you make the effort and struggle, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help you finish your task. So in this ayah of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Inni mumiddukum bi alfi min al-malaika. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send 1,000 angels to you who will help you finish your task and finish your responsibility. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, who had not accepted Islam at that time, he himself, of course, was captive in this war itself, in this battle itself. A Sahabi radiallahu anhu, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu reports that a Sahabi was in a pursuit of one of the mushrik from Mecca. One of the pagans of Mecca, he was in pursuit of him. A Sahabi was running, a companion was running behind him. All of a sudden, he heard a noise from the heavens. Ya Hurzum. Hurzum was a name which was said. And he said, go and grab that individual. And before the Sahabi, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu reports this authentic narration, before the Sahabi got to him, the angel had already done his job. Meaning, this man was doing a job, fulfilling a job, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inni mumiddukum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help you, of course, complete your efforts and complete your job. And of course, this Sahabi came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, I have grabbed this individual, but even before me grabbing him, the work was already done. Ya Nabi Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I heard this noise from the heavens as well by saying, Ya Huzum, complete and grab this individual and fulfill your task. At this moment, the Nabi Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu report that the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, this angel was from the third heaven, Sama'u Thalis, that this angel that you heard of the voice was deputed in this world as a time of Badr from the third heaven. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had sent this angel from the third heaven. And Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, in his own story that we'll talk about inshallah next week, and which is later coming inshallah, he also describes, because Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu was a big man, he said that a person who grabbed me was really small, which was a Sahabi, but the real person who has captured me was much bigger than me. The Ansari was much smaller. But the man who actually I physically and personally saw and got in contact with was much bigger than me. And I know that the small Ansari couldn't grab me. They'll talk about next time as well. A person says that my father, a Sahabi, said before me that my father had moved his sword, but the target was killed before this. Meaning, this is how the Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'een saw the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in such ways. Zubayr ibn Awam, Allahu Akbar. He's known as the Hawari of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave bashara and glad tidings to many Sahaba. O Abu Bakr, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, all 8 doors of Jannah will be open for you. O Umar radiallahu anhu, I saw a house so beautiful in Jannah that I thought it must be mine. I was entering this house and I was told that this is the house of Umar ibn al-Khattab. O Uthman, every Nabi has a Rafiq in Jannah. O Uthman, you are my Rafiq, my friend, my closer, person. O Ali, your house will be right next to my house in Jannah. Every Nabi will have Hawariyin. Talha and Zubair, you are my Hawariyin, my partners in Jannah. So Zubair bin Awam radiallahu anhu is amongst the Hawariyin of the Prophet ﷺ. So it is known that, and of course, who is Zubair ibn Awam? He's the father of Abdullah bin Zubair radiallahu anhu, which is a great man to himself. And of course, Zubair ibn Awam is the husband of Asma binti Abi Bakr. Asma radiallahu anha is the one who is the oldest sister of Fatima, and she's the one who helped Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the type of hijrah. In the Battle of Badr, Zubayr ibn Awam radiallahu anhu was wearing a yellow turban. The reason why I mention all of this to you. So who is Zubayr ibn Awam? Zubayr ibn Awam radiallahu anhu is the Hawari, the guardian of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Jannah. He's the father of Abdullah bin Zubayr. He's the husband of Asma binti Abi Bakr. So this man, Zubayr ibn Awam radiallahu anhu, was wearing a yellow turban, imama, in the Battle of Badr. And because of this, all the angels, 1,000 of them who participated in the Battle of Badr, all wore the same imama and the turban like Zubayr ibn Awam radiallahu anhu. So that's the title and credibility that he chose, for Zubayr ibn Awam radiallahu anhu. And it is mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself chose all the malaika and angels who participated in Badr as well. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked by Jibreel alayhi salam that what do you think of those who participated in Badr? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that they are the best amongst us. Meaning these are a group of individuals who are the best amongst the ummah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whatever you do after this, Allah will forgive you. So Rasulullah said this to Jibreel alayhi salam, that the people who participated in Badr are the best amongst us. So Jibreel alayhi salam, subhanallah, replied back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam by saying, O Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the malaika and the angels who participated in Badr are also amongst the greatest of the malaika, amongst the malaika and the angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these malaika, of course, were, great honor itself. And it is also mentioned, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu mentions that never did the angels fight along the Muslims except in the Battle of Badr. Yes, the Nusra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did come, but never did angels physically fight alongside the Muslims except in the Battle of Badr itself. There's also a story of a Sahabi, his name is Ukasha ibn Muhsin, was a man who was fighting with his sword, and he hit something and he broke his sword. So he picked up a twig and he gave it, he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, Ya Nabi Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I'm fighting, but I have broken my sword and I have nothing. So at this moment, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is a mu'jiza, miracle, authentic narrations, these are not fabricated stuff. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam picked up a piece of twig, a wood, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave it in the hands of Ukasha. As soon as he gave it in the hand of Ukasha, it became one of the best usable swords. And of course, he used it all the way towards he reached the time of Musaylima al-Kadhab, a man who proclaimed false prophecy. He reached until that time, and this was the iman bil ghaib of Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'in, that they witnessed that this twig became one of the best swords for Ukasha ibn Muhsin radiallahu anhu on the Battle of Badr itself. The highlight, the climax of the Battle of Badr was the killing of a man known as Amr ibn Hisham, Abu Jahl. How did it happen? It started with two young boys, two young men, 15, 16 years of age. I mentioned this previously. The cut age of participating in the campaigns with the Prophet of Allah was age 14. If you were less than 14, you were not allowed to. So these two young men were about 15 and 16 years of age. At this moment, this narration has been reported in Sahih al-Bukhari. Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu, amongst Ashura al-Mubashara himself, reports this hadith in al-Bukhari. He said, I wanted to be next to strong men so that I could be comfortable. 3 people were a group of individuals. So he said, I wanted to be next to those men who were strong in strength, To my disappointment, Allahu Akbar, I turned towards my right and I saw a shabab, a young boy. I looked towards my left. To my disappointment, I saw a young boy. And I said, Ya Rabbi, I ask for strong men around me. And I get these young boys, I protect myself or I do protect these young kids. Suddenly, one of these young kids leaped towards me and poked me and said, Uncle, do you know how Abu Jahl looks? Because these youngsters were from Medina. They were amongst the Ansar. They have never seen Mecca. They have never seen Quraysh. They have never seen Abu Jahl. They have just heard about all of these things. So this one youngster, he asked, Uncle, do you know how Abu Jahl looks? He said, yeah, kind of know. Of course, Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu knows all about him because he came from Mecca. He said, why do you want to know about him? So he said, Uncle, I have heard that this man dishonors my Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I have taken this promise upon me. And Allahu Akbar, look at the words of this young man. And he used an Arabic metaphor, example. He said, I have taken an oath upon me that his shadow and my shadow will overlap. And he said, I promise either one of them will overpower the other. He says, if my shadow and his shadow overpowers, meaning overlaps each other, then one will overpower the other. Either he'll take my life or either I'll do it. I've taken his promise about me because he dishonors my Nabi. He said not too much had passed that the young kid on the other side also poked me. And he did not want to let this other kid know that he is speaking to me, and he asked me the exact question, and he took almost the same qasam. And at this moment, he said, I became much more secure and of course comfortable with the seeing of these individuals. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahmatullah alayhi mentions that Abu Jahl was guarded by many individuals around him, and he was standing behind trees and shrubs and bushes. So that's how he strategically planned himself. So he was in an open public area. So he was hiding behind trees and bushes and scrubs, whatever was around, and of course there were many people around him. And of course, along with him was Ikramah, his son, Abu Jahl's son. Of course, he became Muslim afterward, radiyallahu anhu. Abdurrahman ibn Auf, this is all hadith of al-Bukhari. Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu mentions, says, as soon as I saw Abu Jahl from far distance behind the trees and shrubs and whatever it was, I told these two youngsters, that is your target. That is your target. That person right there, that's Abu Jahl standing on top of the horse or the camel, whatever that was. Amongst those two youngsters, one of them was Mu'adh ibn Amr al-Jumu'. Mu'adh ibn Amr al-Jumu'. Mu'adh ibn Amr al-Jumu' was a young man who took the second pledge of Aqaba. If you remember when Rasulullah ﷺ was in Makkah al-Mukarramah, and the Muslims came from, the Ansar came from Medina, they performed Hajj and they took the bi'ah and pledge on the hand of the Prophet ﷺ that we want to take you back, can you come towards Medina? So Rasulullah ﷺ said, I will wait till the revelation. So the first pledge happened, and the second pledge happened, which was the 12th or the 13th year of his prophecy. That second pledge of Aqaba, this young boy had taken a pledge because he was almost 14 years of age. 2 years had passed and he's 16 now. Mu'adh ibn Amr al-Jumu' was a man who took the second pledge of Aqaba. As soon as he heard Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu say this, he came running towards him and he tried attacking Abu Jahl. He could not reach the upper portion of his body, but the only thing that he struck was the leg of Abu Jahl. As soon as he struck the leg of Abu Jahl, it flew off of his body. And the Sahaba radiallahu anhu majma'in gave an example that if you put the date stone in a grinder and it doesn't fit inside the grinder properly, and it comes to a side and you grind it and it jumps out of it, automatically jumps out of it, that's how the leg of Abu Jahl flew so quickly. And as soon as that happened, he couldn't wound him perfectly and completely. As soon as that had happened, Ikramah, the son of Abu Jahl, saw this young kid, Mu'adh ibn Amr al-Jumu'. He attacked back upon Mu'adh radiallahu anhu, in which he said, my arm was severed. It was only connected by a small ligament or piece of flesh. And he said, it became so difficult and a hurdle for me that I put it between my legs and I pulled my hand out and I threw this arm to the side. And this is just a young man, 15, 16 years of age. Mu'adh radiallahu anhu said, this is how far I went. And of course he survived and he lived all the way towards the Khilafah of Uthman radiallahu anhum. The second youngster, when he saw this happening, his name was Mu'awwadh ibn Afra. Allahu Akbar. Mu'awwadh was the same boy or a young man who stood up for Mubaraza. If you remember last time that we were together when Utbah and Shayba and Walid, 3 men got up, the 3 Ansar, which was amongst them was Mu'adh and Mu'awwadh and Abu Abdullah ibn Rawaha radiallahu anhu. This was the same young boy. He got up. So this young boy, Muawwad ibn Afra, got up and he was the second one to attack. And Ajib thing is that these young boys, they were 3 sons. 2 of them, subhanAllah, became shaheed in Badr. They were known by their mother, Al-Afra. They were not known by their father. They were known by the piety of Al-Afra. Afra was such a pious woman that everyone knew these kids by the mother. So they were known as Mu'adh ibn Afra and Mu'awwadh ibn Afra. 2 sons a mother lost in Badr, Allahu Akbar. At this moment, he also ran because he was also on the side of Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu. He ran towards them, and of course, he also struck him, which made Abu Jahl fall from the ground. But of course, this did not finish him completely, but they had done their work. Both of them, youngsters, came running back to the Prophet of Allah ﷺ with the news that, O Prophet of Allah ﷺ, we have killed Abu Jahl. The Nabi of Allah ﷺ saw their swords, both of their swords, and the Nabi of Allah ﷺ said, both of you have killed Abu Jahl, meaning the combination of both of your striking him will cause the death of Abu Bakr, of Abu Jahl. At this moment, and of course, on a longer run when Abu Jahl passes away, the armor, because this was the tradition or the ruling, that whoever takes the life of a certain individual, their armor will be given to that person in honor. So the armor of Abu Jahl was given to Mu'adh radiallahu anhu, Mu'adh ibn Amr al-Jumu radiallahu anhu. It was given to Mu'adh because Mu'awwadh ibn Afra passed away in Badr. And because he passed away, he did not receive it. Otherwise, they would have separated or given 2 portions. But Mu'adh radiallahu anhu, ibn Amr al-Jumu radiallahu anhu, a young man, received the armor of Abu Jahl because of him being the first person after that. After the battle had finished, the Prophet of Allah ﷺ asked to find the body of Abu Jahl. The Nabi of Allah ﷺ asked the Sahaba, go find. This is the peak and the climax of the battle itself. Go find the body of Abu Jahl. Sahaba spread and they went to different directions. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhum, At-Tamimi, who was a shepherd, who was the 6th person to accept Islam, he saw the last moments of Abu Jahl. He reached and he saw Abu Jahl. And he knew this because he went through so much persecutions and difficulty. Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu came and he stepped his foot on top of Abu Jahl's chest while he was breathing his last. At this moment, Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu asked, if you have been humiliated now, Abu Jahl, have you feel your humiliation? Has Allah disgraced you finally? Do you not feel your disgrace? He says, no, I have just been killed by my own people. Even at that time, it was mutakabbir. He said, no, I have just been killed by my own people. I haven't been killed by outsiders. My own people killed me. Meaning that's their fault, na'udhu billah. It's not my fault, it's my own people who killed me. Because he was in such an awe and such a condition, Abu Jahl did not know what was going on. So he asks Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. He says, what's the result of the battle? What happened to the battle of Badr? Well, the Muslims and the Quraysh were facing. So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given victory to himself and of course his Rasul Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When Abu Jahl realized that his foot is on the chest, meaning the foot of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu is on his chest, Allahu Akbar, this mutakabbir man goes, you have stepped yourself on a very high place. Meaning you have put your foot on a place which is very high. Oh, the son of a shepherd. Meaning you're a shepherd and you're stepping on a place which is so high for you. So you got to be careful. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu at this moment tried using his sword. But of course the entire day of the usage of his sword, it was not strong enough to do its work. So at this moment Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu struck the hand of Abu Jahl while he was holding his sword very firmly. And he took the sword of Abu Jahl. And of course he did his work. As soon as Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu was about to attack Abu Jahl, this Fir'aun mentioned and he said, make sure that you cut my neck from a lower portion because I should look like a leader amongst all the people who have been killed. At this moment, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, after completing his job, he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he said, I found Abu Jahl. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, have you found Abu Jahl? 3 times with such, worry that did you really find Abu Jahl? He said, yes, Ya Rasulullah, I did. 3 times he replied, and the Nabi of Allah saw Abu Jahl, and this is that time where Rasulullah said, for every ummah there is a Fir'aun, and the Fir'aun of my ummah is this man Abu Jahl. This was the statement that Rasulullah said. But wallahi, there's one thing that I want you to take back from this story. Ulama and scholars had mentioned that the most arrogant man in the ummah of the Prophet Muhammad was this man Abu Jahl. He was the most arrogant man, even at death. Even Fir'aun wanted to make that last minute tawbah. But Abu Jahl was the most arrogant man. And wallahi, according to the research of the Sahaba, the most humble Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ was Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. Such a humble man. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed the biggest, the most arrogant man of this ummah by the most humble individual. Because Allah will always destroy arrogance with humbleness. And that is the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, we also remember the story of Umayyah bin Khalf. These are all scattered story in the day of Badr. Of course, Umayyah bin Khalf is also a man who finds one of the most evil endings. As we remember, Umayyah bin Khalf was a man who was a coward. He never wanted to come. He knew that if he faced Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam out of Mecca, he will be done. Of course, being a coward, he stood away from everyone else. He was trying to find, protection. When he saw that there was no Qurayshi left and he could not find any protection, he finally saw his closest friend, Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu. Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu, before accepting Islam, his name was Abd Amr, the slave of Amr. So when he accepted Islam, of course, his name became Abdurrahman ibn Auf. Rather than Abd Amr, the slave of Amr, his name was changed into Abdurrahman ibn Auf, Abdurrahman, the slave of Rahman. But because he was so close to Umayyah, Umayyah said, Na'udhu billah, I don't know Rahman. I'm not going to call you Abdurrahman, you're my friend. I'm going to call you something else. He said, what? He said, I'm going to call you Abdul Ilah. We all believe in Ilah. I'm not going to call you Rahman. Na'udhu billah, so much both. Even his best friend, he said, no, I'm not going to call you Abdurrahman. Okay, if you don't like me calling you Abd Amr, we'll decide upon Abd Ilah. So on the battle of Badr, he saw Abdurrahman ibn Auf going. And he screamed, Abdul Ilah. So Abdurrahman ibn Auf knew that it was no one else except for Umayyah. He goes to him and he says, Abdurrahman. And of course, Abdurrahman is still a businessman. He goes, look, you're my friend. Why don't you take me as a captive? Take me, capture me. Take my armor and give me as a prisoner. Whatever milking cows and whatever milking camels I have, it's all yours. Let's make a trade. Save my life. I'm not going to do anything to you. We are friends. You're going to make money. I'm going to be saved. So why don't you do this? So Abdurrahman said, yes, we have friendship. I'm not doing anything wrong. I got you as a prisoner of war. Let me take you back. So he took his armor and he's taking him back to Rasulullah ﷺ so that he can collect whatever he can as ransom for this man Umayyah ibn Khalf. As soon as they are returning back, and who they see in front of them is Bilal bin Rabah radiallahu anhu. So Bilal radiallahu anhu sees him and says, Umayyah, the most evil man of the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, and you know Umayyah was the owner of Bilal bin Rabah radiallahu anhu. And he's the man who tortured Bilal radiallahu anhu the most. He would torture him day and night, day and night. When he became tired, he would hire people to beat Bilal radiallahu anhu. So at this moment, Bilal radiallahu anhu said, I'm not going to let you take him. Are you going to give safety to a man who gave so much trouble? So at this moment, Abdurrahman said, look, brother, this is a real deal. This is a clear deal. I'm not breaking any laws. I'm not breaking any clause. I'm taking this man as a captive. I'm going to take his money, well and good. If you find him later, do whatever you want. But that's my prisoner. Don't touch him at this moment. At this moment, Bilal radiallahu anhu's emotion got to him. He became very loud. At this moment, many Ansar gathered. They said, Bilal, what happened? And they never had witnessed everything. So Bilal radiallahu anhu recollected all of the stories of Mecca, of how he was persecuted and all the things, which became, all the Sahaba became very emotional. And they forced upon Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu to hand over Umayyah bin Khalf. And of course, at this moment, Umayyah bin Khalf was killed. And Bilal radiallahu anhu made this announcement. And he says, La naja illa naja. He says, over my dead body. You're going to take this man alive over my dead body. You take my life before you take this man with you, Umayyah bin Khalf. That's how stern and of course strong Bilal radiallahu anhu was in his decision. And of course with the help of Sahaba, they were able to do this. Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu would say very often. He said after the battle was done, everything was complete. Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu said, may Allah have raham upon Bilal. He said, because of Bilal, that he stopped me from getting all the ransom and all the wealth that I could have. And he also made me leave the armor there too. I could have made some quick money off of that too. Meaning, he was still a man of trade that Allah had given him, but this was their love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Amongst the stories of Badr itself is of Abu Ubaidah, Amr ibn Jarrah. Abu Ubaidah radiallahu anhu is amongst the Ashra al-Mubashra. Abu Ubaidah radiallahu anhu was a Muslim. He was on the side of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His father Ibn Jarrah was fighting from the side of Quraysh. He was a mushrik. The son wanted to stay away as far as he can from his father. He never wanted to come close to him. But the father, Ibn Jarrah, took all opportunities to take the life of his own son, Abu Ubaidah radiallahu anhu. He avoided his father as much as he could. But finally at the end, he could not resist and he came so close to taking his own son's life that Abu Ubaidah radiallahu anhu, to protect his own life, had taken the life of his own father. Because of this, so many people began accusing and blaming Abu Ubaidah ibn Jarrah radiallahu anhu, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the last portion of Surah Al-Mujadala, which mentions and of course reveals the greatness of Sahaba and how they protected their iman, and they would not let anything stand between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is also a very, very long story. Two more things before we finish, inshallah. Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu reports that the Prophet of Allah had made an announcement that of course Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, Abu Bakhtari and people of Banu Hashim should not be killed. Few people he named. A man from amongst the Sahaba, his name was Abu Hudayfa radiallahu anhu. Who is Abu Hudayfa? He's the son of Utbah ibn Rabi'ah. And of course his sister is Hind. And of course she's the wife of Abu Sufyan. So he fell in an error. And Sahaba were human beings, brothers and sisters. Please remember this. Sahaba were human beings. They fell in errors, but their errors were forgiven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We cannot even come close to the dust and dirt which touches the feet of Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajmain. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, radiallahu anhum wa radu an. Allah is pleased with them and they are pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are not even the khak and particles of the dirt of Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajmain. But they were human beings, they erred. They made mistakes, they made statements which they themselves regretted afterwards too. Abu Hudayfa radiallahu anhu is one of those individuals. He's the son of Utbah ibn Rabi'ah. His sister is Hinda, the wife of Abu Sufyan. He also felt in that kind of error as well. So he made a statement when Rasulullah says, do not take the life of Ibn Abbas, Abu Bakhtari, and few people of Banu Hashim. He said, our fathers and our sons should be killed, Utbah and Shayba and Walid. Our fathers and our sons should be killed, and the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ should be left behind. If I see him, I will be the first one to kill him. Abu Huzaifa radiallahu anhu said this because he came into the field of that emotion, the situation that was going around them. At this moment, Rasulullah ﷺ was standing next to Umar radiallahu anhu. And that's the first time ever that Rasulullah ﷺ told Umar radiallahu anhu, Ya Aba Hafs. His daughter was Hafsa, but he called him Hafs as Ya Aba Hafs, oh the father of Hafs, even though the name was Hafsa. From that day, his kunya was also known as Abu Hafs. Ya Aba Hafs. Will you see the face of the uncle of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ being cut? Meaning, would you see this? At this moment, Umar radiallahu anhu got up and said, let me take care of this. So, of course, being a Sahabi, he did not want it to do anything which was out of the rulings. He went to Abu Hudayfa radiallahu anhu, he spoke to him and he put him in his place. He made him realize that whatever you are saying is out of emotion. Come out of your emotions and realize and understand this properly. And of course, Abu Hudayfa radiallahu anhu finally realized, and then he made a statement. Allahu Akbar. Abu Hudayfa radiallahu anhu used to say that I will be worried for this statement till the end of my life, until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts me as a shaheed. Until I don't give my life for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this statement will worry me till my last breath. And of course, it was the time of Yamama that Abu Hudayfa radiallahu anhu became shaheed in the battle of Yamama, and of course his promise was also fulfilled. At the time when Utbah's body was being dragged and was being put inside the well that we'll talk about next time, inshallah, Rasulullah ﷺ stood next to Abu Hudayfa radiallahu anhu and consoled him and gave him a lot of courage. Last but not least, a man known as Abu Bakhtari. The Prophet ﷺ said, do not kill Abu Bakhtari. Who was Abu Bakhtari? He was the man who helped the Muslims come out of the entire siege. If you remember the 3 years of boycott in the Shaybi Abi Talib, he was the one who helped the Muslims a lot. So Rasulullah ﷺ said, do not take this man's life because he has been so helpful to the Muslims. So he was forbidden. But at this moment, a Sahabi, his name was Majdin ibn Ziyad radiallahu anhu, while he was facing the battle itself and everything was finishing up, he came upon Abu Bakhtari and some of his friends. At this moment, he told Abu Bakhtari to come with him because Rasulullah ﷺ has said not to take your life, and you're coming to Rasulullah ﷺ because the Nabi of Allah ﷺ has given strict order for you. Abu Bakhtari said, what about my friends? So he says, your friends, the Prophet ﷺ has never told us anything about them, but he has told only thing about you. So Abu Bakhtari said, Allahu Akbar, Ajib, tribe, families, all these things. He said, what will the woman of Quraysh say that Abu Bakhtari saved his life and he left his men behind? So I'm not going to go with you. What will the people say? What will the women of Quraysh said that Abu Bakr, to save his life, walked away and he left his men behind? I will stand with them. And of course, they all attacked the Sahabi to protect his life. Those individuals were killed. And in that moment, Abu Bakr also was killed. At this moment, the Sahabi, came to Rasulullah and said, O Nabi of Allah, even though you had told us not to take the life of Abu Bakr, but this is how it happened, and his life was taken. And of course, the Nabi of Allah excused him at that very moment because of this particular act. This is the middle of the battle. Inshallah, next week we'll talk about, not in the next week, the week after, inshallah, we'll talk about how the prisoners of the war and the ending of the battle itself took place and what lessons it teaches us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to learn and reflect over the life of the Prophet ﷺ, and allow us to love the Nabi of Allah ﷺ from the depth of our hearts, and allow us to become the true ummati of the Prophet ﷺ. If the brothers and sisters do have any questions, inshallah, we'll take a few quick questions, inshallah. Yes, sir. So the Battle of Badr, subhanAllah, what we talked about last time was that the usual fights of the Arabs that we talked about in the last sessions were that the Arabs would fight in a very circular form. A group of individuals will go and come back, and the next group will go. But Rasulullah ﷺ in this particular battle had changed the strategy of fighting that the Arabs had never seen, the Arab world had never seen. So usually in every battle there was always a mubaraza. Mubaraza means an introduction, a climax, which gives a little hype to the fight. So this battle also began with a mubaraza. 3 men from amongst the Quraysh, 3 men from amongst the Muslims, they fought one-on-one itself, and at that very particular moment, the Muslims had overpowered, and of course they had taken the lead. The rest of the battle, what we know is, yes, there was individual one-to-one combat as well, but mostly it started off with throwing of the arrows and ending up with swords. That's what Rasulullah ﷺ told his Sahaba as well, that let them come closer towards you, not be the one who rushed towards them, but wait for the Quraysh to come towards you. And that's why Rasulullah ﷺ made 3 portions of his army. A group of individuals in the beginning, in the leadership of Musab ibn Umair, a group of individuals towards the right, and a group of individuals towards the left with Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh radiallahu anhu. And Qais ibn Sa'asa as a troop in the back to be a reinforcement if anyone needs help from any particular side. And they were waiting for the people from the Quraysh to come from the other side. And as soon as they were coming, the Muslims had actually waited till they came very close, and they started throwing their arrows. And that's why Rasulullah ﷺ, if we talk about the Battle of Uhud, inshallah, when we'll go later, is that he had archers and people who would strategically aim the enemies. And then, of course, the Nabi of Allah said, let your arrows be the last thing. Hopefully, inshallah, what we can do is when the Battle of Badr finishes, maybe we can have a map of Badr and try to actually see it physically. So, inshallah, once if Allah gives us tawfiq to visit the place of Badr itself, we can actually know how the battle itself took place. But it was mostly in the way that it started off with mubaraza, that it started towards the second level of the fight, which was waiting for the armies to come and throwing of arrows, and then finally ended up with swords. All out at once. Yes, all out at once. But of course, keeping reinforcement in the back. This was a strategy of Rasulullah. خير إن شاء الله سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.